Hello, today I will tell you what are functions, how to create them and why they are needed. Function is simply a block of code which can be invoked, executed as many times as we want in different places in our code by us or even other people. Function, which is called sometimes a method, is, as the name suggests, taking a role, function of doing something, right? It's the method for resolving the problem. For example, a function can calculate something or inform the user about something on the website by popping up the special window. For instance, alert function, which we already know, right? When we type something like alert and we type something inside, we gonna create a window, special window with this variable, well, with the value of this variable inside that window. So somebody created a function for us that's gonna alert somebody. The cool thing about function is that you can copy it, you can invoke it as many times as you want in many places in your code. Of course, you would have many other things like here, right? Other in your code. And well, because of it, you're saving your time and you can instantly see that this function is responsible for what? For alerting somebody. Instead of it, you would normally see like, I know, 67 lines of code and you would need to repeat it again. And if you wanted to change something, then you would have a problem, right? You would need to change in every possible place where you use it. It would be very hard to spot and well, you would just have just too much code, okay? So functions are very important. There are many available functions written by other people. That's also very cool. So, well, there are some basics one that are standard built-in one. They are stored inside something what is called objects most time. We'll talk about objects more later. So, well, for example, you have got a function that can parse a type from, for example, string to integer. That's pretty useful function that you can use. You can change, for example, check if the number is a number, none is not a number function, and other things like that. There are many functions, for example, used for operation on strings. When I go here and I open it, as you can see here, there are many functions type here that can do some operations with string, okay? And well, we'll learn the most useful functions, and sometimes we're gonna create functions for our own usage. But there are many, for example, also frameworks like jQuery. It's very good framework that is just set of the most useful functions created by other people, and there are many plugins to it. And well, if you know jQuery and well, JavaScript firstly, and then jQuery, you can create many things very fast, okay? So it's good idea to look on the internet, because most time if you want to create something, it's been already created, so don't lose your time. You can most time find it even for free, okay? So after this course, it's very good idea to learn something which is called jQuery, because you find many useful functions that will save lots of your time. Okay, we now know what is function, but how to create functions, our own one. Let's start from creating a simple one, so we get to know with the syntax, okay? In order to create a function, you have to type a keyword, function. So, you know, the interpreter that is gonna interpret JavaScript will know that soon you're gonna create a function, that it is a definition of function, not invoking of function, right? So now we have to type the name of function, for example, test, okay? That's a simple name. And then we type parentheses, so the same like when we were invoking it, but because of the keyword function, the interpreter now knows that this is just a definition. And here you can define something what is called parameters, but we will talk about it a bit later. Now we should use the curly braces to say where the function is starting and where the function is gonna end. This thing is called a body of function. Okay. So you know also the curly braces from, for example, if statement, and they were used to store many instructions. So yeah, here in the function it has got two roles. One is to say where the function is starting and where it is ending, and also to store many instructions at once, right? So we can type here instruction 1, instruction 2, bam, 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 bam. And all of these instructions are gonna be invoked, are gonna be executed when we invoke the test function. So when we just do something like test, okay? All these instructions will be invoked. And you can invoke inside the function another function. You can do whatever you want here, right? So for example, when I type something like alert sample, and when I run this, as you can see, we have got now here sample set. Because I run inside the test sample. When I do something like, for example, this, I will see all these windows, sample, sample2, and sample3. Because I said that I want to run, by invoking this function, all these instructions here. You probably also notice that right now, not everything is invoked one by one, right? From the top to bottom. Function is just an exception to this rule I talked you about. You are defining it somewhere and it's just gonna be invoked whenever you want from whatever place you want, okay? You don't read everything from top to bottom and you are thinking about function. Because right now when we do something like that, we are jumping from this place to this place, okay? That's how functions are working. When you invoke them, you are jumping to the body of function and you're running the things that are inside the body. And well, the function can also return to the place where it is invoked a value. But what does it mean to return the value? Well, when you type something like return 5, right now, here, really, we have got something like 5. If you had some instructions here above, they would be all executed, and then after it, we would have here 5. That's pretty useful. You will see soon why. But let's check it out. For example, let's create a variable and store the result of that function to the variable which is called a, and then we will alert it. So we do something like that. As you can see, we have got now 5. So whatever we type here, whatever we return, it will be now stored inside the variable a, because we assign it with the operator for assigning it here by invoking the function, and we have got this return here, and it's just gonna be replaced. This line is gonna be replaced by this return, right? This place exactly. So you can also invoke the function inside the function like that, right? As an argument. We are just sending here like 5. Let's check it out. As you can see, we have got exactly the value here. Well, the a as the bam bam bam. The 5. Okay. So that's how it works. You can return something. So to sum up, invoking the function means that the function is gonna be executed, all the instructions inside the body of function, and the place where the function got invoked is gonna be replaced by the returned value. So in our situation right now, it's just 5. Of course, this is a very simple example, so let's do something more serious. Sometimes you might want to work on variables that are at the beginning unknown. For example, values typed in the form by the user of your website. To the function, we can send variables which are called arguments. Right now, let's create something simpler. For instance, a function that we add 2 values. So, let's create a function that we'll call add. As you can see, then the name suggests that it's gonna add something. And now we can define that we're gonna take 2 arguments here, and we're gonna define parameters. They are called here parameters, okay? I will call them, for example, x and y. You can call them whatever you want, of course, like variables. And now we're gonna create the curly braces. So now we can do just something like add and send, for example, 3 and 5. And this 3 is gonna be now in that x, and 5 will be in that y variable. And now we can use this value sent here inside that function. So we can type, for example, return x plus y. And now here we have what? The result of the operation after the return word. So it's a. We can check it. We can, for example, do something like sum of variables, and then we can alert them. As you can see, we have got now a, and we can change now this result pretty fast by just sending different arguments. Of course, these arguments can also be variables and other things like that, okay? We just do some operations here on them. So let's create now another function which is gonna divide two variables. So for example, function, and I will call it divide. And also I will call them x and y. As you can see, we can call them the same like they are here, and there will be no problems with, you know, which one is which, because they are in different scope, okay? This thing is a scope also for variables, so you don't need to worry that when you type here like x equals 5, it will work with the function above, okay? And now we can just type return x divided by y. The problem is that y can sometimes be 0, and you can't divide by 0. So how to do something like, you know, inform the user that he typed 0 is wrong? You can do it. You can check if, using the if statement, if y equals to 0, then return. It means that don't do anything. We can also inform, for example, alert, you can't divide by 0, okay? And then return. When we don't type anything after return, it means that this function is gonna end here and return undefined. And now when we type, for example, 1 divided by 0, you will notice that we have 1. We had 1 because I didn't change the function here, right? So divide, it's now not sum of variables, but well, the result of division. And now we can see you can divide by 0, and then we have undefined. So the result, well, the place where we invoke this function was replaced by this return, and because we didn't type anything here, we have got there undefined, like that, undefined. We could also, you know, return, for example, it like that. Then we would have just one alert, you can divide by 0. We don't need to use the curly braces, right? And you also probably are wondering why we have 2 returns inside. You can have them as many as you want, but after returning, you know, everything after the first return that is invoked is not gonna be executed. So in our situation, because the second variable is what? 0, we are just returning here, and this thing will not be executed. You could type here else, but you know, for maybe more clarity, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to type it, because that return is just gonna exit the function. So return is also an exit from the function. So if we change this to, for example, 5, and here we'll type 10, we should have as a result 2. Because, well, this if statement is not true, so this return is not gonna be executed, and the program will end here. Of course, all these functions are simple. I'm just showing you the syntax. We'll create harder functions later. Right now, let's sum up this lesson. As you can see, the functions is just a block of code that you can invoke anywhere in your code and get the result. But why do we need functions? Thanks to functions, if we want to change something in our code, we can do it only in one place, in the body of the function. And if we didn't have functions, we would have the same operation code in many places. And if we wanted to make a simple change, we would need to make a change in all possible places, okay? That would take lots of time. And it would even hard to, find all these places where you use it. So thanks to functions, you can reuse as many times as you want the same code, which makes your project easier to maintain, and it saves you lots of time because you can reuse your work or even somebody else's work, like for example jQuery framework. Thanks to functions, our program is also more readable because we can easily see for what each part of code is responsible for. Let's imagine a situation like that. Get value from form ID. We can invoke a function like that, create it before, right? And you can instantly see this function used for what? For getting value from form. That has got form ID as a variable, as the value of this variable. This is just great. We can instantly see that this function is gonna just get the value from the form, which ID is form ID. If we didn't have functions, we would have instead of it, for example, 50 lines of code that wouldn't inform us so much as this one simple line here, right? We will need to analyze the code to get more info of the code. So remember that you should create functions that are self-descriptive, which means that when you read them, you know what they are doing. Right now, things like that might seem like they are not important for you. But believe me, you will be thankful for me for all this information in future. That's all in that lesson. Thank you very much.